This is the 35th episode of Curiosityness, and welcome to the episode. This, because we have like the Oscars coming up, so I figured I'd do an episode about, the Oscar nominations and movies and all that kind of stuff. So this episode is with Sade and Kyle of Offscreen Babble. And it's just a really fun conversation. I have my girlfriend Sydney hop on and join us in the interview about 10 minutes in. But we just talk about movies and nominations and just a whole bunch of stuff. So if you're into movies and cinema and anything like that, I think you'll enjoy just kind of hanging out with us on this episode. But other than that, enjoy the episode and enjoy the Oscar nominations and the ceremony coming up. So I hope you watch that too, because that's always pretty fun. But that's it. Let's get to the episode. Here is Sade and Kyle of Offscreen Babble. And boom. Hello. How's it going? Sade and Kyle.
Hello.
Thanks for being on, guys. Stoked to talk to you. And it's like movie season sort of right now. Oscar season, I guess, huh?
That is true. Next week are the Oscars.
Yeah, end of movie season, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
really.
Yeah.
Beginning of a new one, really.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very true. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a movie in 6 years. No, just kidding. But
I was like, oh my God. No.
This would be a tough podcast to get through. But yeah, I feel like I haven't seen many this year, really. And I think it's because we used to have MoviePass. We got rid of it, I don't know, a few months ago or whatever, when they all kind of changed it. But that was great for a while when they were great and you could go to anything. We saw like everything for the last Oscars. But now, I feel like I've been missing out.
Did you get the yearly membership or you just got it monthly?
We just did month to month. Yeah. So,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Once it started changing and they restricted the movies you could go to, then it was just like we could never find anything to really go to, so it wasn't worth it. But did you guys?
Yeah, it was weird.
Did you guys do it?
We had MoviePass. Maybe it's like second round, because MoviePass has been around for a little while,
a long time actually.
Yeah, and before last year, we had. When did we have it? Like 2016, I think. Something
like that. Basically, it was back when it was actually $35 a month.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which was, reasonable if you really saw 3 movies a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, we basically see like 3 movies a month. Let's do it. And didn't realize there was also an early termination fee if you weren't in it for a year. And then it ended up being like I really like to get the value out of whatever we get. And I was like, we got to go to a movie. And Shawnee's like, well, nothing looks interesting. I'm like, no, this one's good enough. Like, we'll just go see it.
So Kyle's describing him slowly going crazy because it was essentially like, we need to see a movie this weekend. I was like, well, there's nothing I want to see. He's like, but we have MoviePass. I was like, great. I'm not going to go see a movie just because I want to see a movie because I want to see it. And eventually we were just like, let's get rid of it. And when I think what you're describing, the membership that maybe you had that was more recent, that's when Kyle was like, maybe we should do it again. I was like, no, you are not allowed to have this thing because you go overboard. And then all that stuff started happening with like them restricting the movies and
then I was like, I'm kind of glad I didn't go for it again, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if, because they had like when it's $35 a month, you really do, I would definitely feel the obligation to go at least twice, definitely 3 times, because it's like, you feel like you have to. You're paying for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But when it's $10 a month, it's like, well, I saw one, so I kind of made my money there.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a way better value. Like, I could just see one movie a month, and that's great.
Yeah. And now with since we started our podcast, now we're seeing it even more. So
we already were seeing a lot of movies, but now we're seeing like way more than usual.
Yeah.
So have you tried any, like, there's a bunch of, because MoviePass, because they started off as like kind of a decent company, or I don't know, like they were actually trying to make money, it seemed like, and be a real company with $35 a month. But then they're like, well, let's just go to $10 a month and see what happens, it seems like. And then everything fell apart or something. But they got a lot of lot of attention for sure. And then it seems like there are a lot of people kind of copied that model. Like, have you guys tried any of the other ones that are similar to MoviePass, or do you have any of those?
No, we were debating the AMC.
We were going to do the AMC one because that one actually I think sounds great.
Yeah.
It's $20 a month, and you can go to, there's some weird limits around how many that were kind of complicated, but it worked out to be fine. But the awesome thing was you could go to IMAX or any of the special format things too as part of that. So it was like a really good value. But the problem is we have so many Cinemark theaters around us, and there are a couple AMCs that are just not that
They're
convenient.
just not convenient. Like the theater that we go to the most is by our house, and it's less than a 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
So and it's not AMC. But
then there was another one that we hadn't heard about till just recently.
Oh, I forget
something
what
with an
it's
S
called.
maybe.
Yeah, it's like in LA and a few other places.
Well, no, now it's across the country, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, and that one seemed reasonably good. I was reading some articles about it, but I forget. There was an article I looked at, and by the end of it, I was like, maybe. So I'm still kind of waiting it out and seeing what happens. I think, somebody may get it right, but
I think it seems like the good thing about MoviePass, even though it's now like a mess, I think it has caused a lot of people to say, like, I enjoy going to the movies. I think, like, statistically, moviegoers dwindled, I guess, these past few years, but they kind of peaked with MoviePass. And I think that there's always this conversation, like, what do theaters need to do to get more people in? And ultimately, it's like, have reasonable pricing first off, because a lot of people can't afford to go to the movies multiple times because of how expensive it is.
We do two little hacks to make it more affordable. One is that we go to the first showing or an early showing on the weekend, which also the theater by us is very cheap. So it ends up, I think it's $5.50 a ticket when we do that.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if we need to go like, in the evening or something like that, I get a 4-pack of Cinemark tickets from Costco, and they're $8.50 a piece, which is still like cheaper. Way cheaper than like the $12 it normally is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you can just kind of use those for any showtime?
Yeah. And, if you wanted to go to like 3D or something, you just like, it's an upcharge of like a 50 cents or $1 or something. So if you really want to do that, you can.
Oh, okay.
And they're like e-delivery, so it just comes to your email. So it's pretty nice.
Oh, that's sweet. That's Costco?
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely worth it.
Out. Yeah, we have an AMC right by us. That's the one that we kind of normally go to. So I'm going to look at their whatever thing that they have.
Yeah, apparently it's really nice. They also have like a thing with AMC, like you can get in line, and there's a special line for the AMC like members. I did go to an AMC once recently, and I obviously am not a member, and I noticed like, I wanted to get a snack, and people would just like show up, and then they would stop going to the other normie line, I guess, and then go to the AMC line. And it was kind of like, I guess that would be cool if I could just walk in and be attended to right away versus now I'm waiting extra long.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
VIP experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a funny, like, oh shoot, sorry. Sydney's showing up. That's my dog going crazy. But it's such a funny, like, way to kind of like show VIP like status is to just like have a special line. I think it's just hilarious. And you kind of walk up, and everyone else in the regular line is just like, oh dang, we should have done that, It
was like whisper, whisper, whisper. Why are they getting help? It was just like, like that's exactly what happened. So,
and it's kind of like when we've been to Disney World and Disneyland a couple times recently, and it's like when you have the fast pass for the ride.
Yeah.
The first time we did it, we like felt bad. We're like, oh my God, we're passing everyone. They're just kind of looking at us. And then like a couple times later, we're like, with Disney World, I think it was like included with the ticket. It's like, it's normal. Anybody can do this. They just picked a different time or whatever. So we felt better. And then what was the kid that passed us one time?
Oh,
he had the fast pass.
He had the fast pass, but I feel like he was being a little smug about it.
Yeah.
Like, I forget what he did.
He like waved back at like the people in the regular. He's like, "See you later."
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, he did something like that, and I'm just like, wow.
Like, okay,
Oh,
that's overboard. Yeah.
Later, suckers. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like literally something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he's enjoying it, but probably not.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. So how often are you guys heading to the movies then, per month or week or whatever?
Man, I think when we first started the podcast last year, we started like early May, end of April. We were basically going to the theater like once a week. So maybe 4 movies a month. And then
in theaters.
Yeah. And then sometimes it would even be more. I remember a few times we were like, well, there's 2 movies coming out, so we have to see both of them.
Yeah.
So I would say at most last year it was like maybe 5 a month.
Yeah.
And then the average maybe like 3 a month. And now that it's the beginning of the year, there's not as many movies that we want to see come out, like at least right now. We're maybe seeing like 2 a month. At least like last month. I think I saw some movies without you too.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so right now we're seeing a lot less and maybe watching more movies at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we're supplementing it. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still seeing a lot. And then we'll probably, I think when does Captain Marvel come out? Like next month? I think that's the beginning of like all these movies that we want to see start to come out. So we'll probably be back at 4 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, that's a lot. You guys are definitely hardcore movie watchers for sure.
Yeah, I remember reading, I'm not sure if this is still like the actual average for like US tickets, like, but I guess at one point the average person in the US saw maybe 4 movies a year.
Oh. Wow.
And that makes sense if you're like, especially if you have a family, you can't really like go to the movie theaters all the time if you have young kids and stuff. And so I think that's why it was that number. But to me, I'm just like, I can't even imagine only seeing 4 movies in 1 year. Like that seems so
like 1 a month is tough, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's about like the lowest I go, I think. Maybe once a month. So like before the podcast, I think we do like 1 to 2 a month. Mm-hmm. Maybe there'd be a month without anything, but then I'd kind of get the itch,
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's nice that you guys have sort of you have the podcast, so it's like a nice excuse to kind of go off and see all these movies. It makes it fun for sure.
Yeah.
I'm hoping at some point, if it grows enough, we can actually fund our movie watching with the podcast. That would
that would be interesting. Yeah. But then I guess like when we're not seeing movies, then we have like tons of TV that we're watching too. So like it does feel like we're always watching something.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing, like this past month, there hasn't really been a ton of movies out, but I feel like we've watched tons of TV.
Plus, it's raining a lot here at the moment too. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we don't really want to go outside. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Okay, so Sydney just sat down.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So I mentioned this to you guys before, but for people listening, we're in a relationship together. For people wondering. But she has a YouTube channel called Scared Pale because both of us are extremely pale, and you review like horror, scary movies, right?
Yeah, at this point, I'm just reviewing and commentating on different types of horror films, and it's a fairly new channel, but yeah, and then hopefully down the road, hoping to just interview people on what their favorite scary movies are and just what their exposure is to horror films maybe growing up, because I feel like a lot of people were censored or, sheltered in very different ways and how that affected them. And so that's
really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting because Sade watches scary movies, but I don't. I was more sheltered as a kid for what I watched. And I definitely get scared more easily and don't enjoy getting scared. So I'm like, I don't want to watch a movie where I get scared.
Yeah.
Yes. That's like what I am. That's kind of our relationship together, where my mom won't even watch like a superhero movie because it's got too much violence sometimes.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, I just never grew up. I wasn't exposed to it. But now, since meeting Sid, I've exposed him.
You've
exposed me.
Yeah.
And
I think for me, I was definitely, I would watch scary movies or thrillers, some horror, but I think when there was a trend of like kind of like torture-y stuff, that was when I was out, and I kind of maybe unjustly thought, oh, all horror films are like that. So for a period of time, I wasn't watching it. But recently, I'm like, oh, no, there's so many different types of horror and scary films that I shouldn't not watch them. So I've been getting more into them recently.
Yeah, I definitely think that there can be this stereotype put upon horror films where they're just like labeled as unintelligent or gore or slasher, and that's what people kind of think. But yeah, I think there's a pretty wide range of, I guess what you would label horror, like thriller or suspense or psychological thrillers. So yeah, I think there's a lot to see out there, and just whatever makes people comfortable. And
yeah.
But you're like, Go ahead, Sade.
Oh no, I used to like when I would see a scary movie, I would come home and tell Kyle everything about it. Like I'd be like, okay, and then walk out the door. I would try to reenact the entire movie.
And sometimes that would even scare me.
yeah.
Like, okay, I need to watch something funny now.
But then after, was it when Get Out came out, I was like, okay, Kyle, I know this looks scary on the trailer, but you need to see this movie. That was, I think, one of the very rare times you actually went to go see it, because I was like, I will tell you everything that happened so you're not surprised, but you still need to see it.
You didn't tell me everything, though.
I think I did tell you what happened, because I think I wanted to make sure you didn't feel scared.
No, I think you just kind of went over how scary it got.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you didn't give it
level.
away. I was surprised.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was like, you have to see this.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kyle, what'd you think about Get Out then?
Get Out was great. I thought, there were a couple bit of scary parts, but, it was doable and it wasn't like too insane. And it was so worth it for the movie. The movie was great.
Yeah.
Very deep.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad that you saw it, because you were like, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, like, after a while of being together, I finally started to trust that she knew what I could handle and what I liked. I don't know how, but she's really good at knowing like if someone will like something, just for like anybody she meets, and it's kind of crazy. I don't know how she does it.
I mean, I try to like figure out what people are interested in first, of course. Yeah. And then if I know the subject, I'm like, this doesn't sound like you at all. This isn't going to be your thing.
So if she says like, you'll like this, I'm like, okay, I'll try it.
That's a good talent. You could open up like a booth at the state fair and give recommendations to people.
Yeah, I make them fill out a survey. Yeah. I'm like, okay, based off of the results, this is the type of movie you should watch.
Well, maybe you can make BuzzFeed quizzes.
Yeah. That would be cool.
So Kyle, what about like a movie like The Shining or something? Because I was not, I'm not into horror or scary stuff really either, but The Shining for me is like one of my favorite movies ever, and so much so that I'm even reading the book right now. Have you seen that?
I have not. I definitely wasn't open at all. Okay, so I'll say the only couple things I have seen was my first girlfriend somehow convinced me to see Saw, which was Saw 3, I think, at the time. Mm-hmm. And, I saw that. And I was like, okay, it was a little crazy, but it was okay. And it was kind of interesting. So, fine. And then Saw 4 came out and I was like, well, I handled that okay. I'll do Saw 4.
Such a bad
but
mistake.
Saw 4 was horrific. Like, I just left there feeling terrible. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. So that kind of thing I don't like. And then I saw... I had a bunch of friends over and my mom and my sister and stuff, and everybody wanted to watch, what's the one, Damien?
Are you talking about
the Omen? Yeah, the newer one.
Okay, the one that came out like in 2000 something.
Yeah, this was a long time ago, but newer.
I mean, it's not that long versus the original. Yeah.
Well, of course. So I saw that, and I didn't really like that. It was pretty scary throughout the thing, and I was like, eh.
I think something like The Shining, which I'm not sure, Kyle, if you're familiar with the story. I think that would really mess you up because you kind of see this guy slowly lose it, and it's. I mean. I don't know if you two have seen recently Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, the kind of choose your own adventure.
No, that is on the list.
Okay, I won't spoil it for you, but if you've seen anything of Black Mirror, there's a lot of stuff like you're questioning what is happening sometimes. Maybe there's some psychological stuff there. And we did an episode where I was like, oh, let's watch Bandersnatch. And we started watching it. And basically Kyle had to stop because he was like, I don't like where this is going. Like it just didn't make him feel good because it does a very good job of like sucking you in.
Mm-hmm. And I get sucked in easily to things.
Yeah. So I think The Shining, I've seen The Shining and I really liked it, but I think you would be upset. I think you would not like that experience.
Yeah, for another example, Gone Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one I thought was a great movie, but it was too much for me. After that, I just like felt terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have a good feeling afterwards. So that's the kind of thing where it's like, it wasn't scary, but it was just like so intense.
I think you definitely, when you watch, like, I mean, when I watch stuff, of course I can be moved and I get really into it, but then, and maybe I leave with a new feeling on something or a new perspective. And then, I kind of just move forward. I think with Kyle, it like really hits him. And if it's disturbing, it's like it will maybe ruin his day. Like it will affect him a little longer than, at least for me.
Yeah, she's much more detached with things while watching them. Usually.
No, I think he's saying that because I'm like
she calls characters not by the character names but by like the actor names.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know all the characters' names.
I'm like, okay, the guy with the glasses, he was doing it, and then so I guess I sometimes. I do like learning about like the production of film and TV and who's involved and, if I like this actor's performance, what else can I see them in? So I guess sometimes when I'm watching stuff, I'm thinking about, where have I seen this person and what else can I see them in or who's directing? So yeah, I guess I can be a little bit distracted at times. But I think with Kyle, you're just like really engrossed.
I'm totally engrossed and enthralled in the story, like completely.
Yeah, that's like how I feel like I'm like that, Kyle, where I'll totally, at the end of a movie, if I'll feel horrible if it's like even like a drama or like a scary movie or something. So I definitely have to, I'm always like, okay, Sid, we got to watch like something funny now. We got to turn on The Office before I can go to bed, because it
we do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely do that.
I think our go-to is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Yeah, we'll watch a comedy afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely lean more towards Sade. I'm very invested in the actors and they're related, like, they were in this movie together too. And wait, who directed this? And almost to a fault where if I recognize an actor, I'm like on my phone Googling, like, where have I seen them? Like, I'm like interested in what's happening behind the scenes. And I think it's why I was exposed to pretty much everything as a kid, which is maybe not great, but like I was always hyper aware of, I'm going to watch the special features now. Like, how did they do this? I think I was always at a level of understanding that it wasn't real. And so I'm able to absorb it and be invested in the plot and the characters, but then I'm able to leave it behind and move forward, I suppose. And
you were watching The Exorcist at like age 7. Right?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah. A really bad babysitter. Yeah. But I was also like, whoa, what is this? Like, this is crazy. So I don't know. It just depends.
Well, that's funny because it's very similar for me as well. My parents did not watch what I was watching or filter anything I was watching. So I definitely was watching like scary movies or things that maybe weren't like age appropriate. And I remember I watched, Child's Play?
At Chucky.
okay, that was such a bad mistake because I'm pretty sure I was maybe 6, and then like I don't know, I've dabbled into looking into this here and there, but I think that Chucky doll was based off of a real doll named Corky, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, but like one day after watching Child's Play, my parents weren't aware that I watched it. My dad got me a Corky doll. And it was terrifying because it had like a very similar look to Chucky. And I was just like, why? And I mean, we don't need to get into this, but this doll did move. So like I just I asked my dad to throw it away, and then like years later I found out he never threw it away, and I convinced myself that it came back. Like it was not a good thing for me as far as being a child watching a scary movie like that. But I think also as a child I was my mom really enjoyed watching like Entertainment Tonight, like learning about celebrity stuff. And I think that interests me in like knowing about celebrity news, but also understanding like, okay, this person is a famous actor. What have they been in? Okay, let me see all their movies, or let me watch the special features or whatever, things like that. And I think that's what interests me at a young age and like up until when I was a teenager.
Yeah. What's interesting for me is I'm not involved in the celebrity aspect, the actors and what they're doing, or the production of the movie. But since I was in high school or even middle school, I was very interested in making movies, and I learned, video editing, and even went to a video editing camp when I was a kid. And so I was very familiar with different things, but mostly what I was trying to make at that point were like martial arts movies with my friends. And so I was familiar with, how to make movies and different things like that. But when I'm watching it, I'm just like instantly in it, and am not able to detach and think about that stuff. But I am aware and love special features, even now when Sade's not as interested in them anymore.
Well, I'm not as interested because I feel like a lot of the special features are not special anymore. Like I feel like for new movies, special features are maybe because production companies and studios are not finding it profitable to film special features as much. But a lot of the material on new movies are like promotional material rather than an actual like in-depth, like let's take you behind the scenes. I think also people are so aware of possibly how embarrassing it might look if the movie is bad. And then they're talking about like the classic thing I can think of is like George Lucas talking about the prequels and all those special features of him like really talking about Star Wars and the prequels and Jar Jar Binks and blah, blah, blah. And then it doesn't age well because people make fun of that. And now we have hours of footage of George Lucas talking about this thing. So now like one of the special features we watched recently was for Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yeah.
And that movie, we really loved it. Of course, I'd love to know like more in-depth things about it. And I think if the movie came out in like 2003, I think they would have done it. But instead, the special features, at least what we saw, were very much like promotional. Clearly, like this was like the 8th thing they filmed that day, and it wasn't very in-depth. And it was, just like it was like almost like a extended commercial.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like let's like really talk about how we came up with these stunts or what it takes to do this, or like, yes, we all know Tom Cruise does his own stunts and wants to do them, but it almost seemed like it was trying to flatter Tom Cruise rather than like really dissect like, why are we doing these stunts for the movie? What do they mean for the story? Like things like that.
That's a good point, because you guys you're probably on like a whole different echelon than where I'm at. But yeah, we saw Mission Impossible, and I loved watching all the like behind the scenes stuff of him like jumping out of the skydiving out of the plane. I was like, oh yeah, they had to CGI that one shot. But then we saw like the cameraman's literally right in front of him and like falls out backwards of the plane. And follows Tom Cruise. I was like, oh my God, that was so cool to see like behind the scenes. But I can get like where you're coming from, where it's like, well, why why did they do that?
Yeah, and I think also for me, sometimes maybe the excitement, maybe I'm like a little bit jaded because like by the time the DVD comes out and they show that footage, I've already seen at least a version of that footage like before the movie came out for the promotional stuff they did to promote the movie, for you to see it initially, like on their YouTube page. So like I've already seen, like, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of the special features that we have seen recently have been like repurposing and repackaging material that they already filmed before the movie came out.
Yeah, and I'm more like you where I still wanted to see it and was interested in it. And I actually did see it beforehand in like YouTube videos. And I was like, oh, this is almost the same thing, but maybe it has a little bit more. And I was like, oh, yeah, it does. Cool. But, you know, at the same time, you know, Sade brought that up. And I was like, yeah, that's true. It would be a lot better if it were more raw and like showing like, you know, a more uninterrupted clip of like them actually filming it with less like intercuts with like music and like stuff going on. You know?
I think Tom Cruise features are probably very difficult to get a unfiltered access to him because I think he's very aware of himself as a personality. And so I think anything he's involved in, he's going to make sure it's very packaged and clean and makes him look as cool as possible, which I'm not trying to say that's bad, but if I want to see a special feature, I definitely want to go deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. I had a guy on the podcast probably 10 episodes ago, but he was he did special effects for a lot of Hollywood movies, but specifically the remake of The Blob he did. And it was just so fun to hear him talk about, you know, how they made like the actual blob thing, and they had huge drums full of all this stuff.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool stuff, but you just don't really get that.
That is exactly what I would love to like see from movies today. Like I would love someone to go in depth, and I have to assume that maybe the studios just find it to be too expensive for them to have like a documentary crew on top of whatever filming extra stuff. Like I don't know what the reason why that stopped and why people don't do things like that anymore. But I would love to like know things like special effects and how they do it, especially if they did like practical effects, like actual things like that. That would be really cool to hear.
I think part of it too is just the way people consume entertainment is so different, because even you guys mentioned, you know, everyone gets everything from YouTube these days. And so, you know, the minute you see that trailer, you're going to look it up. And so I think a lot of those things are just out there on the internet. So maybe it's a budgeting thing. They don't want to pay for that expense. And then maybe it's just also people are such a quick consumption these days. They watch things so quick. They're binging things. And so I don't know, unfortunately, I feel like the mass people, they don't really care. I have so many friends I know, they're like, oh, you watch the special features? I'm like, yeah. So
I think you're absolutely right on that, because I think like even with this whole like Oscar season right now, a lot of the conversation from, at least like it's going to air on ABC, a lot of the conversation from their part is I think it's mainly like they want to make sure they're getting ratings like how they were getting in like 2002. And the ratings in 2002, I think were like 40 plus million people were watching the Academy Awards. And I think the ratings more recently now are like 20 million, which if you think about it, that sounds very drastic. However, ratings for everything have gone down. Especially
a live event, I'd assume.
Maybe the Super Bowl, the ratings have stayed pretty consistent or maybe have dwindled just a little bit. But like for most TV, including other live events, they've gone down because to go off of what you were just saying, like I think in 2002, if you wanted to see movie stars, there wasn't like a YouTube that you were watching all the stuff. There wasn't like Instagram where you had access to them all the time to see what they're doing or what they're wearing. You had to watch an award show. And I think now in 2019, if you are only slightly interested in movies, it's not a driving factor for you to watch a 3-hour award ceremony. Because you could just say like, oh, if I want to see, I don't know, like what Lady Gaga's doing, I could just go to her Instagram. I don't need to see her at the Academy Award, you know, like I have that access to her most of the time.
It's interesting as well to see how the Academy and the Oscars are responding to that, because it's a very clear, I don't know if it's an issue, but I suppose for them with ratings and stuff, and how, you know, they're adding all these categories and they're shifting some of the categories to be, you know, received during the commercial breaks because they think people don't care about them. And yeah, so it's a weird time for television.
This ceremony specifically has been the messiest as far as like the production of what's going into it, because like you said, they were up until I guess 2 days ago, they were literally saying we're going to air 4 of our award shows during commercial break. And then I think maybe yesterday they were like, never mind. And it's like, guys, can you stop? Like, just like, I don't like that they made that decision in the first place, but I also don't like that they keep making decisions and changing them. And it just feels like they don't know what to do, because ultimately, I think with all these changes that they're trying to make, they're trying to appeal to more people, to get more people to watch. But they're losing like core people who love just watching the award show and would watch it at any point, regardless of how media changes. And I think they probably are now realizing like, wait, our core base of people who want to watch this show are now mad at us because we keep changing everything. Maybe we should change it back. Like, I don't know. It seems like they're panicking. I would love a documentary on like, just,
she is so big on documentaries.
Yeah. Just like, who is involved in releasing this? Who's the person who has to keep tweeting, okay, we're doing this. Oh, never mind. Scratch it. Like, are all these people involved? Because it just seems like so crazy. Like, I don't know.
I think she watched the Fire Festival documentary a little too many times.
I watched that like multiple times and it was amazing. I love documentaries about fiascos or especially, my favorite is like, especially when there's like a scammer involved, like that has to be revealed and they have to talk about how they scam. Like, I just love that genre. And whatever that is called, that's my favorite in documentaries.
Yeah, that Fire Festival was like a dream come true then for you.
Yeah, and especially that 2 documentaries came out. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yeah. It's like perfect.
Such a funny story. Gosh.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I was listening to your Oscar nomination podcast that you did just yesterday or something, but you guys talked about how what was it, the sweater guy with the shoes, what's his name?
Jeff Goldblum?
No, he has a kid show in the neighborhood.
Mr.
Rogers.
Yeah, I was like, the sweater guy. Who's that? Like,
yeah, like how, because we saw the documentary and loved it, but you talked about it wasn't nominated, right?
It didn't get a nomination, which was really surprising.
Yeah, but it was a really good, I thought the documentary was good. Yeah, I guess it wasn't like the best thing ever, but it was more the subject that I really loved about it.
I did too. And I think that because, as much as I love watching the Academy Awards, now that we're doing the podcast, I'm trying to become more knowledgeable about it, like know more facts and stuff. And from what I've heard, I guess the group that votes for Best Documentary, they're not necessarily fans of archival footage documentaries, like documentaries that are just showing lots of like clips from old things. So apparently that's a rumor as to why they didn't maybe enjoy what was it called? Won't You Be My Neighbor? Yeah. Maybe that's why they didn't enjoy it as much. I'm not sure. But yeah, I thought the documentary was really good. But the only thing I would want from it was more in depth about him as a person. Yeah. And specifically from his family, because you saw like a brief thing with his sons who briefly were like, yep, that's how he was. Yeah. And it kind of seemed like there was a tiny bit of resentment there. And I wish they would have delved into that a little bit more, because I could imagine if that's how your parent was 100% of the time, that might, as loving and great as that is as a consumer, like watching that might be hard to be around that all day, every day.
Did you guys see the show Kidding?
Oh, on Showtime.
I saw the first episode because it was like a trial, like because we don't have Showtime. Yeah, they put it on YouTube. So I watched it and I loved it.
Oh, it gets so much better from there too.
Yeah, I think that kind of delves into like, what if Mr. Rogers was in 2019?
Yeah,
what he would be like, and you kind of see his family life, like his people kind of be like, okay, we get it. You are like this all the, like they're a little exhausted by his like ever, like him always being good. But then there's obviously a whole bunch of other stuff that happens. And,
very different character from Mr. Rogers, but inspired by, and so
clearly they're trying to reference
life.
it. Yeah.
So you guys talked about like how they like whatever the Academy likes for documentaries wasn't necessarily whatever they did for Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Yeah.
But so like how does I'm like vaguely familiar with the process, but do you guys know how the whole like voting nomination process works for the Oscars?
So unfortunately, I don't know the specifics. That's something that I really should like look into and know everything. But what I do know is that certain people are allowed to vote in certain groups. So I think like everyone is allowed to vote in Best Picture, but documentary, I believe you have to be like associated with documentaries and that to vote for Best Documentaries. And then also,
also, maybe to take a step back, people have to like select people are in the Academy and are given the opportunity to vote, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's like a whole
secretive who's in it?
No, I don't think it's secretive who's in the Academy, because a lot of times when they add new members, they'll make like an announcement.
Okay.
Especially, I think in the past few years, they've been trying to diversify their group and make sure that maybe there's some younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think they'll make like an announcement, like say like, okay, congratulate all these new people to the Academy. So I don't think it's a secret. I'm pretty positive if you looked it up, you could probably see like who's a member.
I think I was thinking of the people who do the ratings.
You're
like
thinking
PG-13.
You're thinking of the MPAA.
Yeah, that
is 100% a secret for no reason. I do not know why. There's that documentary about it. You've never seen this documentary?
No, you talked about it.
Oh, it's so good. I think this film is not rated, or this film is not yet rated.
Yeah.
And it's basically this guy trying to like find out like, okay, who are these people who it's a filmmaker who's like getting like his stuff like rated R or like X or whatever. And he's trying to figure out why are they secret and also who are they? But yeah, that's completely different. For whatever they're secretive. The Academy is open. But yeah, as far as like documentary and who gets the vote for it, I'm assuming it's other documentarians and maybe other people who are part of the production in that. But everyone, at least like actors, directors, producers, I believe are able to vote for Best Picture. And then it goes from there. Yeah.
Right. So whatever, there's some requirement or something like you have to have some sort of, credits to your name, and then you get accepted into the Academy, and then you can vote for various things or whatever, huh?
Yeah, I believe that's how it works.
And then I think you get sent screeners of all the different things.
Yeah, you get sent screeners not only especially if you're in the Academy, so that you can. But from what I've heard is like a lot of people don't. I mean, it would be almost impossible to watch like everything that's nominated, right? Yeah. Or even everything that comes out to get nominated. But apparently, yes, you have access to all these screeners, but not everyone watches all of them apparently. So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that'd be cool. Have they?
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, like, do you have to? Is there like a chance you guys could get in there from just having the podcast, or is it totally like people who have like been involved with the movie? Do you know?
It has to be somebody who's involved in like, because it's a union, I think, as well. I think you have to be involved to get like Academy screeners. Now, there are other people who do like press, or like bloggers or
film critics
who get access to screeners as well. But that's not through the Academy. That's just like they have access through screeners, I guess, maybe from like other things, maybe the production companies or other things that they're part of, like groups that they're part of.
Which sometimes get you like early access to the movie before it comes out.
Yeah. So like if our podcast somehow was insanely popular and like we were just doing really well, then I am assuming you could probably get access to things like that more. Yeah.
It'll happen. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's our goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. So what do you guys think? I mean, I don't know. I'm not even really familiar with like the Best Picture nominations this year, but you guys had some like predictions, didn't you?
Yeah, I think when we were doing our nominations, we were kind of talking about what do we think will win and what do we want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Best Picture, I actually have like it up. So it's Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. And we have seen, those are 8 nominations. We have seen 6 of those movies.
We're about to see
Roma. Yeah, Roma's the one that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
But I think...
And we haven't seen Green Book.
Yeah, we haven't seen Green Book.
But Sade refuses to watch it.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not going to watch it. There are some things I'm just like, no, thank you. But whatever. But yeah, for me, when I think of like Best Picture, I think Kyle and I both really want Black Panther to win.
Yeah.
And it's not even like I think we're like overly like comic book superhero people, even though we do see a lot of comic book superhero movies.
Yeah, but I didn't like read comic books as a kid or anything.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I just think that we really enjoyed like how that movie was put together, the fact that it is a superhero film, but it's able to surpass that as far as like its genre and like be about multiple things and just how entertaining it was. But I think Roma is going to win based off of the critical reception it's received.
Okay.
But we'll see. I mean, yeah, it's actually very interesting because I think some people are thinking maybe it might be Bohemian Rhapsody might win.
And we'd be very upset about that.
Kyle's looking at me very intensely right now. Yeah, so like, I don't know if you two saw Bohemian Rhapsody, but okay, so I don't know if you liked it or not, but I think it was. I'm not even going to say it's the worst movie, but as far as like being nominated for Best Picture, I think the reason why we were shocked was because it felt like it felt very surface level as far as what they were telling us the story of Freddie Mercury and the band. And it just seemed kind of like they could have gone in a little deeper.
Yeah.
And it ultimately, when I think Best Picture, I'm thinking about a movie that really like does something either unique or does something insanely well. Like maybe it's a typical story, but it's just executed very well. And I felt like this movie was neither of that. Like it wasn't executed well and it wasn't unique. It was a very like by the book, like, hey, you play music? Okay, let's join the band. We're a success. Drugs. Oh no! Like it was like very like like that's a story that we have seen.
Hey, spoilers!
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about it. But it's a story that I think a lot of people who have watched any type of music biopic or anything like that, it's very typical. Mm-hmm. And I think the way it was done, I can understand why people enjoy it because if you're just going for a movie. To have fun and
you don't really know Queen that well.
Sure, yeah, that too. But also you like Queen music. It could be an enjoyable time. But I think for us, it was very frustrating. And then the fact that it's getting nominated for Best Picture, we're like, oh my goodness, like how? Like, I don't know. So but a lot of people think it might win Best Picture.
Huh.
So
yeah, because Sydney, you saw it. I haven't seen it, but Sydney came home and I asked her how it was because I was really excited to see it. I wanted to go see it, but she was like, it was good, but wasn't that great. So I wasn't like, I haven't even seen it now. Then it's probably on, I could rent it or something. But
I think you could probably rent it now, or maybe in a few weeks. So especially since the award show's happening, they're probably going to make sure that if it does win something, it's available for people to purchase and rent right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to see it still, but I feel like a lot of it's probably just because people. It seems like right now there's almost like a resurgence in like Queen and Freddie Mercury, and people just love them so much that they wanted to love this movie.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up because when we do the podcast, what I'll do is I'll try to like look for people who are discussing maybe the topic we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So that week when we talked about Bohemian Rhapsody, I was like, okay, what are people saying? Let's just look. And a lot of people were like very intense about their love for Queen, the band, and justifying why that means the movie is good. And it was very hard to have like a conversation about the movie without them feeling very passionate about Queen. And I think that is what a lot of people are getting out of this movie. Plus, apparently a lot of like younger people who maybe are like teenagers or like early 20s who are not familiar with Queen as much are like, wow, yeah, this was cool, because they're not aware of it, which totally makes sense. And I think many people who saw the movie were like, wait, Queen made this song too? Yeah. Oh, they did this? Like, I think it's like discovering Queen music for the first time. And I completely understand why that would like enhance your experience. But we were
already familiar with their songs
exactly
and liked them a lot. So then we wanted the story behind it.
Exactly.
Because we both like, getting the information and like learning more, and it felt like you didn't get much of that.
It felt like, and I think with biopics, I always go into it knowing like, well, they're going to change stuff for the story. Mm-hmm. They want it to be like, they only have 2 hours. They're going to change stuff. You can't use this as a go-to guide to understand whoever it is about, right? But it did feel like very manipulative, some of the things that they did change, and unnecessary. And then if you want even more further stuff into it, you find out like Queen, the band, is heavily part of the production, which might clarify why it doesn't seem to 100% focus on Freddie Mercury. Because when I think, if someone said, hey, I want to do a movie about Queen, I'd be like, oh yeah, Freddie Mercury. I wouldn't think the rest of the band because Freddie Mercury is such a presence and his story is so interesting that the rest of the band, unfortunately, is just like, it's like, okay, whatever. But I think the rest of the band, because they are the surviving members, were like, no, let's make it about us. And apparently they originally wanted the movie to be like halfway through. This is a historical fact, so it's not a spoiler, but Freddie Mercury is dead. And they wanted their, so it's like, man, yeah. But halfway, apparently when they first drafted this movie and they were like pursuing it, they wanted halfway through for Freddie Mercury to die, and the rest of the movie to be about Queen and their legacy and how they've moved on and whatever. And to me, that's not cinematic at all. That's like, what? Like, I want to see Freddie Mercury. I don't like, that's great that you guys went on but they're not very interesting, as far as the movie goes. So I think it was a lot of like egos involved. And then I won't even go into like the director being like a whole thing. Like, so yeah, it was just a weird combination of things. But if you go online and try to talk to anybody about it, it's very intense because people really love Queen. So it's hard to have like a conversation about the movie versus the band.
So I'm curious what your guys' opinion is, how you had mentioned, with a film, they're naturally going to change certain things so they can fit it in a timeline or just for entertainment purposes. And so after I saw that, or any biopic I look up, what are the differences between what really happened? And one of the biggest issues for me with Bohemian Rhapsody particularly was that they made such unnecessary conflict with Freddie Mercury coming out with a solo album and how he was leaving the band. But in reality, Brian May had a solo album, I think another member had a solo album, and it wasn't a conflict at all, really. So do you guys think when things are changed in, quote, true story movies, is that understandable, or is that just like annoying?
I think it's understandable depending on what they change. So like when you go into the specifics of that, like what they changed there, to me, that feels like kind of gross that they are trying to like almost make Freddie Mercury the villain. And he's obviously not part of this production because he's dead. Like it seems kind of like, why are you doing that? I don't understand for the story, because it's honestly, when I think back on the movie, that is such like a minor part. Like if you want to just make
it like lasts for like not much time, and it's kind of like you forget that it even happened.
Exactly. So it just seems like, what was the point in putting that in there unless you just really wanted to for whatever reason, like personal reason. I feel like it was not constructive for the film and a story. Like, let me just peel away the Queen name. Let's just pretend it's just a band. I would be like, why are they like, it just felt weird. Then when you layer in the fact that you know that Queen was involved and they are very aware that that is not what happened because they were in the band, you're like, oh, that's really strange. And like that
But
was.
I'd say in general, though, so maybe in that specific instance, it didn't seem like it served the movie enough to make sense. But I think from what you were saying before, that type of thing you were totally fine with in general.
In theory, I'm okay because I know they have 2 hours to tell a story, right?
Yeah,
so
that's cinematic and interesting and like, has ups and downs and conflict.
If they wanted part of the conflict to be, wow, Freddie is just like full of himself and now he's doing his own thing or whatever. Let's really get into that. Why is he full? I mean, he is the star of the band. Maybe that's why he's doing it. Let's delve into his success and how like whatever. But instead they just kind of like were like, yeah, and Freddie was always late. And Freddie did drugs. And Freddie did like, it was just like, okay. Like, you know, like they kept like trying. It seemed just so strange how I don't think, I mean, who knows how they feel about him. I don't think they're like mad at him, but it seemed like because they were involved, if someone maybe said, hey, maybe we can make it that, you know, Brian May did something bad, I feel like he would have been like, no, we're not doing it. Like, you know, like it just feels like, no, let's put that on Freddie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like.
For me, like, so Sade is more okay with taking the liberties there, whereas, you know, I like getting the real facts and stuff from it, so it bothers me a little more, I think.
Yeah, you were pretty upset about the changes more than I was.
Yeah. But I think especially it's not great. I expect for sure that the feeling of it and like the portrayal of the person and their motivations and all those things should be true, and maybe the events are changed slightly and, you know, certain details are changed, but like the person is still portrayed in the same way as the true story. That is what I would want. And it sounds like, you know, from these kinds of changes in this movie in particular, that was not adhered to. And I definitely don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's well said, Kyle. That's really good. And I also think that that's kind of the difference where, you know, I agree with you, Sade, too, where I'm okay with, if it's a biopic, with them kind of taking some liberties and you know, weaving it into a really nice cinematic story that's fun to watch and go see. Because, you know, it's a biopic, whereas like that's the difference between a biopic and a documentary, I think, where I really want it to be as accurate and everything as possible, but I can let it, it's understandable because we want it to be fun to go to and watch. But a documentary that's where you need all the facts and everything straight for a documentary for sure.
I agree. That's what I kind of left Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, I hope there's a really good documentary on this subject, but it just feels like, unfortunately, like, what was the documentary we watched? Was it Eagles? The Eagles documentary that was on HBO? That one was really good because they had like all the members and they were very candid about their personal ups and downs and their feelings about the other members and blah, 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 blah. I feel like with Queen, unfortunately, I don't know if they would sit down to do a real in-depth documentary. 2, I think because of the fact that they're a little bit more, maybe, I wouldn't say secretive, but guarded, it'd be hard to find like real information about stuff. And then unfortunately, Freddie Mercury's dead, so you can't interview him. You know, like you have to go off of
secondhand accounts.
Exactly. So I don't know. I hope that they do make a documentary on Queen one day that's very in depth, because that I was missing a lot of that in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yeah, hopefully that would happen. It seems almost inevitable, but yeah, I guess they'd have to have the right sources and everything to get that done properly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So you guys doing anything for the Oscars? It's in like a little over a week, right?
Yes, we are doing, we're going to have an Oscar party.
Nice.
We're inviting a few people over. I'm trying to come up with Oscar snack names. Like one is Another One Bites the Crust. I think Kyle came up with that.
Well, she started it and I finished it.
Yeah,
she's like, Another One Bites the something. I'm like, crust, obviously. Right?
I was like, oh my gosh, perfect. Okay. And then I was thinking like, what was a char is born? And I was like, when am I going to char? I'm still working it out.
Yeah, it was like, you can take the green vegetable that's a
char?
Yeah, Swiss chard.
Yeah, and I was like, that doesn't sound tasty.
Yeah.
Do a bar is born again and have an open bar.
Okay, so I was thinking a bar is born, but then I was like, oh, I want to make a drink out of, I don't know if you two have seen The Favorite, but there's a line in The Favorite about pineapple. So I was like, oh, I want to make like a pineapple drink. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm going a little crazy because I'm like really trying to make the names very like punny. Yeah. But yeah, so we're gonna watch the Oscars and then have snacks. We made our own little Oscar ballot so people can select who they think will win, and then whoever is the closest will win a prize. And I just got like a whole bunch of like stickers that are I got like
with the Oscar nominees. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I got like some like Spider-Verse stickers and Star is Born stickers and Black Panther, so things like that.
And she shared she designed the ballot herself and put it up on Twitter too. So
so like people can print it. Yeah.
Perfect. What's your Twitter?
At Offscreen Babble.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, there's there's kind of like an old theater that's been around since like the 20s, right by us. We're in Long Beach by LA, and they have, it's really cool. They show a lot of films there and stuff still, but you can join a membership, and then they have this Oscar party that you can go to, which seems super fun. But we just found out about it,
nice.
And it's like already sold out. But we're gonna look into that for next year.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it seems very fun, and there's like, especially being members, there's a lot of people who are pretty into film, and we just saw a silent film there with a live orchestra playing, so it's pretty fun. It's really cool, and it's like 2 blocks from us.
I wonder if there's something, we live in the Bay Area, I wonder if there's something maybe like that around here, because there's like the San Francisco Film Festival, and then like the organization that makes the festival, and I'm assuming if you're a member, maybe they have stuff like that, but that would be really cool to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that stuff definitely seems fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, I guess we'll kind of, we've been going for like over an hour here. This is great. But
that's short for us.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any 2019 movies that are coming out that you're excited for?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Kyle, do you have anything that you could think of? I know, Kyle, maybe if I had to guess, would be Star Wars.
Yes.
That would be episode 9.
Me too. Definitely excited for that.
Yeah. I'm
always
excited
just
about that
look to her to remind me of what I'm
I know. Kyle
about.
Looked at me like,
I was like, don't ask me. You know what I like.
I know. So yeah, I think that's definitely one. For me, in next month, Us comes out, which is Jordan Peele's second movie that he's coming out with, which was a horror film. I think it's going to be more horror than Get Out. Yeah. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Like.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. Yeah,
it's Kyle, like I want to see it because he's the best, but there's no way.
Yeah, Kyle will not be seeing that, but I'll be seeing that.
But I'm looking forward to Sade giving me an exact synopsis. So
yeah, and I've been paying attention to like Sundance, and there's a movie, I don't know too much about it, called The Lodge. And it sounds very interesting. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you like not the most accurate synopsis, but I believe it's about this girl, or it's a woman who gets married, or she's going to become a new stepmom. And the kids don't like her for whatever reason. And they keep trying to like expose something about her, but they're not finding much about her. Mm-hmm. And then at the time when they try to expose her, they get stuck in a lodge together. and some bad stuff happens from the stepmom's past. And apparently it's like a horror thriller, and I heard it was really good. And that sounds really interesting to me because it also involves like family dysfunction, which I also like watching in movies. Like it seems like it's going to be like family dysfunction, maybe a thrilling element, a horror element. So I'm looking forward to that movie, but I don't know when that one comes out because it premiered at Sundance, and those films sometimes might take time to get picked up and then distributed. So yeah, I say those are at least on the top of my head what I can think of.
Also, I'm interested in where the second Avengers movie goes.
Oh yeah, I as much as we like talk about superhero movies, I feel a bit exhausted.
Yeah.
I say that knowing I'm going to be seeing all of them. Like it's not like I'm saying I think I'm going to take a break. I know I'm going to see them.
Yeah.
But it does feel like a lot sometimes because it's almost like every month or every other month there's another superhero film. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Having said
hard.
that though, have you guys seen the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie?
No, we have not.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's really good.
That was cool.
I think also the one movie we were talking about this recently that we want to see, I think it'll be one of the rare times we see something ironically, is Cats, the movie. So like I have never seen Cats. Everything I've heard about Cats sounds crazy. Kyle, you've seen?
Yes, that was the first Broadway show I saw when I was like in middle school, and it was just terrible.
Yeah, so it just seems like why I know Cats was very successful.
I don't understand why.
I don't understand why it was successful, but in theory, it was very successful. So like make a movie, right?
Right.
But then when you start hearing about what Cats is, it's like, what the heck? Like, why would I make a movie? And then you see like the cast is like Jennifer Hudson and Taylor Swift and Idris Elba and like all these people. You're like, what is happening? Am I losing my mind? So part of me, I just want to, I'm very curious. In my opinion, I think it's going to be bad, but I want to see it because it sounds just, I don't even know. I don't know what to expect from this movie.
Yeah.
Are you going to see it, Kyle, with me?
I mean, I guess so.
Okay.
Such enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Bad memories.
Yeah, I want to.
I have not, just jumping back to like the superhero movies, I have never, I mean, we're not super into them. Like we've seen a few, and like I saw Black Panther, which was great, but I kind of had this with like Star Wars where I didn't grow up watching them, but then I was like, dang, everyone's talking about Star Wars. I got to do it. And then I just went through and watched, all 6 of them and then like freaking fell in love with it. So it was great. And I want to do that again with like superhero Marvel movie kind of stuff and just kind of get into it because I feel so like almost out of the loop and left behind.
I can imagine it's very hard if you are not in, because I have a friend who's like, I hate superhero movies. I don't know why everyone's talking. Like he's just like literally like, please don't talk to me about it, right? Yeah. And some of the stuff I could tell that he's like extra annoyed is because it's so present in our lives. Like if you walk outside, you will see a billboard for like the next superhero movie. That is what everyone is talking about because these Marvel movies are connected. They're not only talking about one movie, they're talking about 20 other movies that came out within the past 10 years. Like it could be very exhausting, I think, if you aren't in that loop to constantly hear about it. Yeah. So I definitely understand that like feeling. What I will say is like, I think the worst Marvel movie is like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like none of them are like terribly offensive, but I could see how a lot of them maybe start to feel similar, after a while. And it's
You'll get that from like an honest trailer if you look at that. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
I think the joke is like a lot of them always end up having like a glowing like thing in space that's the villain and like like they all have like these similarities, but I will say like when I look back on like Iron Man that came out like 2008, like
that's
because
hard to imagine
because it was the first one, I would say like those are like that's one of the more stronger ones because they were kind of like, are we going to connect this? Hopefully, let's see if this works, you know? So it was a little bit more independent.
And the Thor ones were very good, too.
I like the Thor
ones,
too.
They were pretty independent.
Or like even like Black Panther, because I think they were like, we want this to appeal to a lot of people. So like it's connected, but also if you didn't see the other movies, you'll be okay because you'll be able to understand what's going on. I think that's a good thing for them to do. I hope they continue to do that, because some of the other movies like Iron Man 2, when I think back on that, I was like, this clearly was just like a filler movie to like connect to the next movie. Like,
they had a couple of those.
Some of them aren't as great as others.
Standalone movies.
Exactly. And I think when people start to look back on them, they'll see like, okay, this is a great experience altogether. But when you have 20 plus movies, I can't watch 20 plus movies when I want just to sit down and watch a movie.
Yeah, it's interesting that thinking back on what you were saying, Travis, about having that kind of feeling with Star Wars, I feel like that's manageable and it's great and it's really cool to just like watch all them. But then thinking about doing that for Marvel right now just makes me like, oh my God, that is a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even begin? I don't even know what order they came in. Like, you're gonna have to
like look it up on Wikipedia. Yeah.
Make sure you watch it in the right order. And I'm sure they're like people who are like, ooh, watch it in this order. Cause like
that's how Star Wars is.
Yeah. So like we watched it a few years back, all of them in like some other order that somebody suggested online. It was like 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. I
you
think.
sound like a robot.
4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. Yeah. And it was like, oh wow, that's cool. But I was like, I can't even imagine for like Marvel, there's probably like 50 different ways to watch it.
Probably.
Taking like 3 years. But I think it would, a lot of them are really good though. So I definitely suggest doing it. But take your time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope with more superhero movies that they start to add more themes to them. It's not just like, oh no, the city's in trouble. I mean, I hope they start like tackling like, I don't know, just like different ideas. That would be great. Like, I think, what is it? Not Dark Phoenix, but I know there's like an X-Men movie that they're thinking that might be more of a horror film. Huh. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, yeah, let's do that. That would be interesting versus like what they've been doing, just the same,
Yeah, for sure. I think I could really get into it if I went, and started going through all them and just, I don't feel rushed. I take my time. Like right now we're starting to go through like all the James Bond series again. Not again.
Oh, nice.
But just to watch all of them. And it's just like, it's nice because then we sort of have like, we don't really have to go through the movie picking process. It's almost picked for us. We can watch like 2 or 3 a week. There's no rush because they're all out. So I think I'd like to do that with the Marvel movies. I don't know if Sydney's into it, but I'll convince her.
Yeah, I mean, if I have the right lens on, I can go into it and just enjoy it. And it's very visual and it's like kind of a spectacle. But like, I don't know, I feel like I have a hard time with how formulated they feel and how commercialized they are. I mean, that's just like what they are. So I feel like I'm a little bit more inclined to watch something that's not just telling me how to feel about every single moment. I feel like they're very, I don't know. Yeah.
They're very commercial. No, I agree with you. They're very commercial because they're trying to appeal to little kids and grown people, and then everyone in between.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't take very many risks because they don't want to alienate anyone. So for me, I think our first episode was on Avengers that came out last year. And I think at the time I was like, yeah, it was good. I just feel tired, I didn't think anything was wrong with it. I was just a little like, okay, yeah. And then Endgame or what we didn't know it was called Endgame, but then that one will come out next year and cool. And then it's like, okay, but then there's going to be another thing that continues the story. It's like, oh, we're not stopping. Okay. It just feels a little like, all right. Yeah.
But that's because we've seen so many for so long.
We've literally seen like all of them.
Yeah. And I think thinking back, like some of the more recent, like the Avengers and stuff is cool if you're totally steeped in it and you want to see where the story goes. But I think even if you start at the beginning and you start watching them, I think that hopefully maybe you'll get into the story. And, I think the earlier movies as well weren't as much of a spectacle as the later ones, I would say, like visually.
I would say they had a smaller scales at times, and then they all just became like about saving the universe.
Yeah, and just like green screen everything. Whereas Iron Man and stuff were more practical effects and
at the beginning,
like it. And I think there's a lot to go into there, and I think if you like at least a couple of them from different characters, then you start getting interested in, how do they kind of meet up and what do they do from there? And
I am looking forward to I think definitely like what you were just saying about going into it with a specific lens. Like if I'm in the mood for it, sure. But I hope going forward, people will stop trying to make everything connect. I understand how financially that has benefited Disney and Marvel, because people feel compelled I can't just see one, I have to see all of them. So they are making so much money from this. But the whole thing with DC and how they felt, we need to make our own connected universe too. And it's like, do you or could you just come out with individual movies like how it always was done? And I think that's what they're doing now, because their universe kind of collapsed on itself. So now they're just coming out with okay, we'll just do Aquaman and we'll just do Wonder Woman and we'll start over with Batman. And, they're just deciding to just do things.
Are they starting over Batman again?
Yeah, Ben Affleck isn't Batman anymore.
Do they have one?
They have not picked one. There's rumors, but they have not officially picked one.
What's the rumor?
I think there's so many rumors, but I feel like people are just starting their own rumors. I don't know, because I think I've heard Michael B. Jordan should be Batman, and then I've heard Oscar Isaac, and I've heard John Bernthal. I feel like it's also people who are just
John Bernthal would be good, probably. Do you guys know who that is?
He plays the Punisher on Netflix's Punisher, and then he was also in Walking Dead. He's in a lot of stuff, but he's really good.
He has the voice for it,
Sure. But my point is I hope that if we're going to continue having, I don't know, 8 superhero movies a year or something, I don't even know how much it is. I hope that they do different things like Spider-Verse. That was fun to see, an animated movie and all multiple different Spider-Men or whatever. I hope that they just start doing different things and saying okay, this time we want to do this type of movie, and okay, it's a superhero, but we're going to focus on this,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it seems like they've gotten the word that's kind of what they need to do or want to do with, at least with the animated Spider-Man. And then if they're doing a horror X-Men kind of thing, they're definitely mixing it up.
Yeah, I forget which one. It might be Dark Phoenix, but I unfortunately I can't remember, because there's been some weird stuff on that end since it's Fox and Disney bought Fox, and now it's what's happening, so I don't know exactly what's going on there, which film it is, but I remember a trailer came out last year with what's that one girl's name? Maisie from Game of Thrones. Her name's Maisie Williams or something. She plays Arya. I don't know. I just remember that trailer, and it was a horror film, and I was like, ooh, this will be interesting. And then I haven't really heard anything about it since. Yeah.
Whew. Well, damn, Sade and Kyle, this is fun. I love talking to you guys.
Yeah,
about
thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
So you guys have Offscreen Babble is your podcast. That's on iTunes and everything like that.
Yeah, it's available wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, including Spotify.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. I think the most popular players would be Apple, Spotify, and maybe
Google Play or something?
If you have an Android, it'd be Google.
Yeah.
But we're available wherever you listen.
Okay, sweet. And then you guys are on Twitter, we said. Is it Offscreen Babble?
Yes, at Offscreen Babble. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Okay. I have not been very good at our Facebook if people are using it, but you can always connect. I just have not paid close attention to that. I will go back on that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. No one's on Facebook anymore anyway. So
that's kind of why I was I'll just make one, but I'm not really on it. But, just in case someone connects there.
Yeah.
And you can email us directly to offscreenbabble@gmail.com too.
Cool. Perfect.
If you want to talk about anything.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. Maybe we should do this again in I don't know, a few months or whatever. But that was fun. I really like talking to you guys.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
that was like I felt like I was like, are we talking too much? Like,
yeah, we'll have to fix that balance a bit.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So cool. Well, yeah. Thanks, guys, and have fun at your Oscar party and have a good one.
Thank you.
All right?
Yeah.
You
thanks.
too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, Travis is here again. So the podcast is over. It's done. So you can just leave right now. So don't worry about it. But I just had a couple things I wanted to mention and say to you guys. So first of all, thanks for listening to the episode or watching the episode. Super appreciate that. If you want to connect with me or in the podcast, we have a website. It's called Curiosityness.com. Curiosityness is Curiosityness. Kind of weird. But that's what it is. Curiosityness.com. You can go there. We have an Instagram, Instagram.com/Curiosityness podcast. So not just Curiosityness for the username. I'm on Instagram as Trav DeRose, TravDeRose, if you want to find just me. We're on Facebook, Facebook.com/Curiosityness. We're on YouTube. I think just go to YouTube and search Curiosityness and we'll pop up. I don't think we have a URL for that one. Sorry. Oh, and I have an email address, travis@curiosityness.com. So if you want to email me, give me your thoughts on the show, suggestions, tips, maybe like a suggestion for a guest who could come on, maybe yourself or somebody that who might be interested or you would like to hear on the podcast. Let me know about that stuff. I would love to hear that. And then if you could leave a review too for the podcast, that'd be super appreciated. The reviews in Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this, super help. Just drop like a star review. I won't tell you to do 5, but it'd be nice. So drop a review. You can write a review even too if you want. That would be even better. But that's about it. So thanks again for watching. I super appreciate you listening to the whole show and staying here. And yeah, thanks again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.